Karen Shira from Springfield Technical Community College. For Karen, you were talking about the quiz detail thing. Do you know, is there a report that will show all of the students at once? Like, is there a question that they're all missing?
That's a good question. I hear C nodding. I haven't found it, so.
You go into exports, and it's under lesson detail, and it will give you an Excel spreadsheet, and you have to go all the way over to Q. Q stands for question, and it correlates to your ACT given question answer guide. So there's a key, an answer key, and you just control S to that number that they give you. So it's a Q, 25, whatever, and I'll tell you what's right and what's wrong. I can show you how to get into it too, if you want.
And you can, go ahead. Yeah, well, that's a good point, because I was going to say, the Excel spreadsheet, I did it once, and I have a feeling that would be helpful, because, for example, you can specify dates with the Excel spreadsheet, which is what I want to know. I want to know, what did people do this week? And I might see a last date when you get to some of the detail. But that's more, especially part-time, that's, I think that would be very useful, but obviously it takes more work to utilize those.
Yeah, that's under exports, not reports, because the difference is that a report is pretty and exports is just information.
So I think, I don't remember if I introduced Yasmin in this meeting, but this is Yasmin Valemsi, who you've all seen and heard from through email. Yasmin is available for you to call and email and set up a time for her to go over that reporting piece or any other. I know she just ticked off a lot and we don't have time to train you on it. So please contact her. Maybe if it's a few short points, you might even write it on the whiteboard later. But she's available and also has one, this action isn't on the video, but she's done some YouTube video with the basics of how to access reports. And it's on the CRI website, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But please contact her with any questions. I know she can help you specifically. Is that the point you wanted to make or another one too?
Sort of. So there is a short YouTube just to get you into the reporting mechanism. So as lots of people said, you got to go try it out. But as you have a specific question, please tell us what it is, because then we're gonna look at what's the FAQ, and then keep adding those demos along with asking ACT whether we're actually planning some in-person sessions here. So we need that feedback, and even if it takes a bit for us to get out an answer to that frequently asked question, but that is really critical and the segue to the updates. But as Sandy said, you should consider Yasmin as a liaison and a resource, because even if she doesn't know the answer, we can funnel questions back to our ACT folks. Okay, so this is very important.
And the reporting is probably the least intuitive. I mean, the other stuff is fairly straightforward. The reporting, it may be overwhelming, but it's straightforward and it flows in a sequence. The reporting, get some clarification, ask your questions, as Jen said, and also spend some time like looking at it. And there are explanations, but it is not, I would set it up differently if I was designing a report function, I can say that. Other questions? Yeah, Carol.
Are most of the programs using it as a standalone class? That's kind of the impression I got. Is that correct? No.
Well,
As part
when
of
you
what
write
you're-
down, go ahead, just down the list and down the row and say,
In our 3-hour a night class, we would have 2 hours of a group activity and 1 hour computer. And so 1 hour of our computer class a week is focused on our academic software that they have access to, and 1 hour is specific for Career Ready 101.
did you all hear? Yeah, so everybody, the fan system is keeping us well circulated, but it's really hard to hear. So Barbara's answer was that she doesn't have a standalone class, but 1 hour a week is embedded into her existing classes. Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the same. Like, for example, like for our lower level readers, the pre-high set students who are reading between the 4th grade reading level and 6th reading level, we require they do 2 classes a week, which would be 5 hours a week of reading, and this is half of that, like half of the 1 day, 1 class is dedicated to using Ready 101, and then the other one is kind of more traditional teacher-led instruction.
So for us, it varies also for our ESOL classes. In the morning, it'd be 14 hours a week. 1 hour a week is Career Ready 101. So they have an hour a day for 4 days. So 3 days they do Rosetta Stone, 1 hour. 3 hours Rosetta Stone a week, 1 hour Career Ready 101 applied math. For our career pathways, they meet 15 hours a week. and they do actually 4 hours of Career Ready 101 a week. Our nurse assistant training, we actually use it to screen who can get into the class. So you can also use this as a placement tool into a class, and they do it 4 hours a week as well. And they're the ones that take the work keys exams. And then for this new venture, we were trying it with distance learning with existing CNAs in nursing homes. They're taking reading, listening, homework, observation, writing, and that's a standalone. They do it on their own.
So mostly, since I'm the main person who's actually used it on staff, it's basically the standalone, except I also teach math classes, so I have used it to help my math students with targeted, because again, there's a range of math class. I'm like, okay, you need the long division thing, why don't you work on this piece? Some of the basic students, so I've targeted and given signed out on that basis. And I imagine that's how we could, going forward.
And you said the Career Ready 101 standalone, you said is 90 minutes a week, right?
It is
And we think
once a week.
once a week, and we think it's a non-rates-based class, but I don't know if you got a chance to check with me in a bit. Oh, oh yeah. Oh, is that
That's
Pat?
Pat.
Oh, hi, Pat. Yeah, so for the language that, for those of you who speak that language. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question
And
about,
loud.
I have a question about the curriculum within CR 101. I assume that when you use it as a standalone course, that it has a curriculum. If you use it as a supplement in your ESL or in your HiSET program, how do you determine the curriculum? Does it align with ESL Massachusetts frameworks?
Who wants to tackle that first?
So you can look up the curriculum and have a copy of it, and just the reading for information, it would tell you what grammar parts on what level. So each level has a different kind of curriculum. You can look up online all the questions and the content. So for us, this is not definitively aligned. So if you have an ESOL class and they're doing a unit on shopping, it's not all going to be about shopping. It's going to be, so level 1 of applied math is more arithmetic, and then they get into some word problems on level 2. And level 3, I'll just show you, say it's rounding and estimating, quantity, handling money, telling time, measurement, fractions, decimals, percentages, positive and negative numbers. That's on level 3. So each level is a different skill. Some of them they drill down more, so they might introduce it and then come back later. So level 1 on time is pretty, or level 2 on time is pretty innocent, but by the time if you're trying to change from analog time to digital time, that's a more advanced level. So they might go back to time later. But you can get the outline there. So it's not, no, it's more standalone, it's a more supplement, it is not dovetailing with what we're teaching.
Mike?
To answer your question. Hi, I'm Mike Farmer from Washington Student Families. We picked up First Literacy Lab grant to try to align the HiSET curriculum with the Grade 101 to try to see if we couldn't find some commonalities. And I would disagree with your students. Reading for information is the test. That is the test. It's getting more and more towards that.
No, the applied math is the part that we think it's not as aligned as.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at that.
And I'm hoping to tap Kelly to do a even more depth analysis of the standards of the HiSET.
Well, and the other problem with HiSET now, especially the subject area test, is that they're going towards, there's prior knowledge that is needed on some of the components, and I don't really think you're not going to see that in Career Ready 101, right? Because it's contextualized to a specific career pathway, not to like, oh, here's 150 years of American history and and stuff like that. So, and I mean, yeah, whether or not it's, the $20,000 question is like, oh, is it aligned to college career readiness standards and Common Core? I don't, yeah.
It's remedial.
But, right, but to Sister Eileen's point, though, in any time you're working with standards, the first thing you need to do is say, well, what's being practiced or learned, and you have this outline, so it's not like they're on completely different paths. They may not reach the level of depth of knowledge needed or go as far up, but as you say, you can always find that curriculum in the Career Ready 101 curriculum, lessons that support directly things that are in the standards at a certain level. Again, they may not go to the depth that you need ultimately for college career readiness, but you can tell different levels and we'll find lessons that support content in those standards, right?
Right, like the writing class is not going to teach you to write an essay, which you need to do to pass HiSET. But it is going to teach you elements about grammar, about writing a letter, about writing different kinds of things, about what you need for topic sentences and moving sentences. So it's going to give you the structural outline, but it's not going to teach you, you don't write an essay in it, and you need to write an essay to pass HiSET. So you can't just take Career Ready 101 and expect you to pass, because, and there's no science in it, there's no history, right, and it's all work-based.
I so appreciate that you really emphasize the curriculum. Have people seen it? Who doesn't know where it is or where to find it? And don't be embarrassed. What we want to do is make sure to get it out. So it is definitely on the CRI, our initiative's website. It's there under the, what are they called, tools. It's called Curriculum Outline, I believe. You can also get it through the system, but it may be easier to find it in CRI. And I think what's so important about, that you keep pointing to it, Sister Eileen, is that whether the content and whether the level of skills or depth of skills aligns with different goals we have is a different question, but it's not a mystery to us what's in the system and what it teaches and what it practices, but if you don't know how to find that and how to look at it and do the crosswalk, it remains certainly a mystery. And it doesn't solve everything, or claim that. Pat, you wanted to say something, and then Larry.
When we first got the license, we used it in a variety of classes at the CLC. We used it with our Bridge to College students. And we had an interesting experience with them. They picked up the technology quickly. They preferred to use it at home, not in class. But what they did say, and these were high-level students, was, for instance, if they were working on something in math, they wanted access to a math teacher. And so personally, I see the benefit of this program is in blended learning, is that you know what the curriculum is, you know what you want, this is something to supplement it. It works great in math with Karen, because when somebody gets stuck, rather than get frustrated and quit, they can ask a question. That's why we have a math teacher in the math lab, not just an instructor that can't answer the question. So when we have had that, when we've used it in a blended setting, it really works. But I think most of our students, it's been a hard sell just to try to use it as a standalone. Because it's not quite covering everything specifically they want. So I think we need to think of it more as a blended, this is offering the opportunity for blended instruction.
Thank you. And Larry, you had your hand up too.
Yeah, we have not yet received a license, but my new best friend, Francesca, is going to take care of that for me.
Yasmin? Am I going to say a joke?
That's my old best friend. But in a classroom setting, and I understand we're using this as a supplement, and that's great. But in a classroom setting, you have a number of different modalities you can use in teaching. How is this working with LD learners?
Learners with
The
people with learning disabilities?
The learning disability studies say that actually electronic delivery is better for them. So it depends on what learning disabilities you're talking about, but the latest research says that discrete screens of controlled information, you're doing one question at a time, it focuses, that it actually helps people with dyslexia and some learning disabilities. And we do deal with a lot of that as adult learners. So, and that's not Career Ready 101, that's just electronic delivery of educational content that those studies have been on. So it does help. It's supposed to help. according to the studies. I've not done any research myself, but
Well
that is a
done.
great question.
And you also have the ability to listen to, right, you can put the audio on so that they can listen to the slides that are being presented. So we have, for auditory learners and things like that, that could be a benefit to someone who is who learns that way and things like that. So.
Do you want to add to it?
Yeah, I was going to say, because for example, my basic math, there are lots of learning disabilities and very low level reading. And for example, I had tried, I'm familiar with Khan Academy, and this compared to Khan Academy was so much easier because just the navigation, you don't have to read 10 different things to know where to go. And exactly, they can put the headphones on and just play and so that's beneficial.
Shira, did you want to add to that, or did you have another?
Yeah, I found that my students with learning disabilities are mostly, like Sister Eileen said, they do tend to find it, the single screen is helpful. There's few words on the screen, so with like dyslexia, like they can focus on small portions, and plus, like the others said, you can listen to it. I did find outside of learning disabilities, some of my students with attention disorders have trouble with it.
We did too.
They like get bored too quickly. So I generally just try to kind of push them to try to stick with it as long as they can, and then I'll be like, okay, switch to Khan Academy for a bit, and let's work there. Otherwise, then they're on Facebook. Right. So like, they can't, the program doesn't hold these specific students' attention.
It is somewhat it is quite static in that sense. It's not multimedia in the delivery, and so I can see where that is, yeah.
I wanted to say we had a problem with someone with attention disorder 2 years back, and she had gone through high school and grammar school, high school, never been diagnosed as attention disorder. Went to her doctor, she was crying and getting sweaty and gonna quit, and she went to her doctor and got some medication to help her with that. Had no idea that that was a problem that she had, and just graduated from UMass Boston in nursing. Never would have gone on if we hadn't found that out and kind of worked with her on that. So I agree, for attention deficit, that was a problem for her. But she got some help she needed, she didn't even know she had it, and she's been one of our success stories.
Any other questions? Yeah. And that.
For even high level ESOL students, like even advanced ESOL students, what kind of support do you give them for the vocabulary?
Even for higher level ESOL students, what kind of support do you give them for the vocabulary?
Well, in terms of the math vocabulary, I tell all the ESOL students, put the headphones on so you are reading and listening. And then some of it was just based on circulating where they're the same things, and that's where I said I'd give some targeted instruction. So for example, I had a lesson on decimals. In other words, how do we name decimals, compare the different languages, or decimal comma versus decimal period. So, and then also pointed, like if you're have trouble with money, like some of the students, I said, here's the money thing, so you learn what a penny is, what a nickel is, and that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I've approached it.
We look at that traditional K-12 model that from kindergarten to 3rd grade you learn to read, from 3rd grade on you read to learn. So that's why we believe that as they have some basis of being able to begin to read in English, that they can develop that by context, etc. But I love what you've done. That seems very good. So it does require a certain ability to read to be able to do it. But this content is leveled, as I said. So level 3 is about a 6th grade vocabulary in the K-12 system. So.
I've encouraged, but it hasn't really worked out to actually keep notes so that people, but they're so used to their technology, they're just used to looking up their words and then they move on. So I don't necessarily have the data that everybody's looking up the same word, but it would be helpful if you take notes and then in the class, okay, which words.
Other questions? Yeah, sure. Or comments? Comments?
Kelly, you said you said that you try to integrate Career Ready with whatever lesson had been taught. Like, you said something about teaching a reading or writing lesson once per week and then integrating Career Ready.
Yeah.
Do you try to send students to a specific place, or do you just say like work on wherever you are in locating information?
Yeah, usually it's work on wherever you are, and then we'll transition to something else, and they may be connected, but often it's like I've designed something else to work on that reflects back to like a high set skill or something like that. Or for college prep, it's like work on something within college prep. I let them work on a bunch of different modules, so the soft skills suite and some other things as well. And so they would gravitate towards reading for information or locating information. And then we come back and we have a discussion on a reading that we'd done before, something like that. But sometimes things would come out, right? They'd be like, oh, I was just working on this thing and we were reading about this, and they'd bring up something that they had found or had been exposed to in Career Ready 101. So there's some value added there as well. So.
Yeah, Carol. I'm new to the CR 101, so for the delivery method, I thought someone mentioned that you use iPads and computers, is that correct?
Or
Is there a preference? One is better than the other?
it just depends which class happens to be outside of the computer lab area, therefore now have to utilize the iPad technology.
And you mentioned the North Star Digital Literacy, so you administer that first to your students?
Yes, we
before?
cannot do it on an iPad, we do need to have the desktop for that, but yes, that is the primary assessment, so that we know whether we even can confidently set them up, because we don't want to set them up for failure. We need to know that they know the basics.
So is there a minimum passing that you would use for the students with that North Star? Or?
The assessment upon completion will tell you what they are competent in and what are the areas that need to be addressed, so that the instructor would look at the overall, patterns of what needs to be addressed in a whole group. We'll do some role modeling, and then the students will be more confident in setting it up. But I also wanted to mention that students just started a closed group with Facebook as a support group, so now they are chatting about what they struggle with in Career Ready 101 among themselves. So they end up helping each other.
Thank you.
Could everybody hear that? Okay, great. Great. Okay, so, yeah, Sheila, go ahead.
Have
And
anybody tried to use the soft skills suite or those lessons? And experience with that?
The soft skills, so there are some of these 17 courses that deliver content, but they don't have the courses to see. And the soft skills is one of those, the self-exploration. So we have found those better in career pathways to kind of project out onto the wall and have everybody doing it together. Because it's
That's
a
what
lot
I was
of
wondering,
content to
actually.
deliver, but there's no
There's no,
test to say which level you should be on, and there is no quizzes to see if you're gathering that content.
okay.
So we've used it as more kind of like the course outline and discussion classes.
And to use the teacher-led materials, the PowerPoints to kind of structure the
Yes, so
lesson.
the teacher is delivering.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
With the class.
And then you can add role
But
plays. you can
we've
add
also,
Yeah.
there is a thing called talent class, that you can take a work keys exam, and it tells you what strengths and weaknesses you have in the talent part of it. And so if we know that someone came back low in, say, customer service, we may assign them to just read over that part on their own. So we've done that as well.
And Jen, you want to say something about talent?
Yeah, just to give you a sense of what we're doing here in Massachusetts. So everybody with CR has the soft skills curriculum. And again, including career centers and community colleges, most of what I heard is whether it's projecting it on the screen or developing workshops around it, they're drawing on the curriculum, but they have to structure an activity. So if that is that is the curriculum, the test for that is talent. And in Massachusetts, when we have mentioned that we pre-purchased 2,000 testing vouchers so that we can allow people to take and sit for the National Career Readiness Credential for free. It includes talent. So it's 2,000 times 4 basically is what we pay for. So one person would have the option to sit for reading, math, locating, and talent, right? And they have separate costs if you were to buy them on your own. You know, most people would argue you don't test people's behavior if you're a paper test. You know, you use the behavioral, you see how they perform on the job. But as we actually mentioned in the last session, the one potential connection to having people take talent as a test is, and it's a set of stars. You don't get a level. It's not as detailed as the other three. But almost any job application today, and this is especially true for young people who have no work history, when they apply, there are personality screening questions that are really in advance of almost anywhere you would go to apply these days. Even if it's a high-end job, they have you take these tests. So it really helps people to start to practice the game that you're playing in that. And we've had people who test talent now, Urban League and a few others, and you know, they'll say, believe it or not everybody knows how to game the test. They actually don't have good knowledge about work behavior. So talent is going to be out there. Again, adult education is, you guys are not being set up as testing sites. It's the community colleges and the career centers. But if you're having a student potentially go sit for that full suite, talent would be one of them. So it's maybe a reason to look at the soft skills curriculum and think about, you know, why you would potentially use it. I forget who said it, but especially that linkage between your advisors and your classroom instructors or your overall strategy for the organization.
Great, thank you. So we're going to wrap up this piece now. I hope that we'll get a chance to revisit this question of sort of making the case, if there's a case to be made, and I think that there are a few different cases to be made for high-set students in particularly, whether the tools align with the high-set, that there's a case to be made even if they don't align, and certainly to the extent that they do, there's a case to be made. So anytime, Mike, I'm going to ask you if you've got anything you can send that we can share around that came out of your investigation. But as your teachers, as it's soon as done, as your teachers or as you all continue to explore further, I'd really welcome you to email me your notes or your sort of where you see the alignment, where you don't, so we really get a better picture that we can put together.